Afternoon world, and welcome to Wednesday 20th of November and the day after yesterday. As you're aware, yesterday I spent the day in London. A lot of the day I spent with Mr Cornock, but part of the day I didn't, because he had one MP to go and talk to and I had another to go and talk to, and our timetables they didn't cross a lot. So I didn't get to see much of the rally, sadly. I was hoping to see Ollie and Clarkson and all that lot, but that didn't happen because my briefings, we were actually, our bus arrived just a bit too late for us to get into the first briefing, so I had to go to the second briefing, which meant I didn't get out of Church House until 12:30, almost 1 o'clock, whereupon I then had to go to, we thought it was Westminster, to go and see my MP. Got to Westminster with Liz, literally just as we were about to go through security. Chris, our area rep for NFU, came up and shouted and said, "Oh, don't go in there, no, you're not going in there, change of plan, you're going to Portcullis House." So that was then a quick run round to Portcullis House, and we did have to jump the queue a little bit to get in. So I did get to see my MP. He was, how can I put it, more than willing to listen. Quite happy to take on our concerns. Obviously, he'd been given the party line side of the government side of the argument, with argument coming back with, well, what about this and what about that, and we think those numbers are right or wrong or whatever else. And I basically said, no, you need to go away and think about it again. So a couple of questions were asked were, what would you like to come from this? And I said, number one, I'd like you to scrap the plan. Look at it, admit that the government have actually made a mistake, not really thought this through, and all the things that because there's so many different aspects of this. It's not just inheritance tax and business rate tax and all that sort of stuff. There's so many other things that are involved in this thing, that if you move this way, you get clobbered. If you move that way, you get clobbered. If you try and do that way, you get flattened. And that way, you get your toe stamped on. I said, there's just so many things. Whichever way, whatever we do, we're being clobbered. And it would be nice to have at least one door open of being able to pass on everything we've built to the next generation who spent most of their life training on how to do it. So, yeah. He said, well, if you can't do that, what will be the next best thing? I said, well, short answer is raise the threshold. I said, 1 million's not enough. And he said, what do you want the threshold raised to? I said, 5 million. And that's not 1 million for him and 1 million for a bit. So I said, nothing to do. I said, just round the whole thing up, 5 million quid. And ideally, if it's sold. If it's sold. Pay tax if you sell it. If you keep it in farming, don't pay tax. Does that make sense? I don't know if that made sense. I was thinking that back in my head. I go, did that make any sense? If you want tax out of the farm, if you want the tax out of the land, have it when the farm is sold, and preferably not if the bank's the one doing the selling. All right. Because one of the arguments was, oh, well, hopefully this is going to make land prices cheaper. Well, that's okay unless you've taken out a mortgage on your land to do development. Say you've spent £500,000 on building a new milking parlour to bring yourself up to speed and modification and animal health and welfare and all that sort of stuff, and that mortgage is secured on your land. I said, so what happens if you do devalue the land? What happens to the bank security? Are the banks going to be happy to loan money to farmers? Oh. No. I said, and then to top it all off, you had the double cab tax. And he said, what? And this is actually my MP. What? The double cab tax. The tax on the car that Mrs Farmer takes the kids to school in the morning, and then when she comes back, Mr Farmer takes it to take the cattle down the field or to market. Didn't know anything about it. That's not necessarily his fault. I said, we're just being attacked from all angles. Anyway, the outcome of the conversation with our MP, he gave us more time than was allocated. He was sympathetic. He had obviously had the party line bashed into his ear with reference to the argument against us, but it was a case of, oh, well, the chap who was taking the notes, oh, can you check that out? And can you just, some of the points I was raising, I don't know about that. Can you check that? And we'll just check this. So yeah, it didn't fall on deaf ears. Did it do any good though? We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, you may or may not have noticed in other news, my tractor's got a set of new boots. There's the old ones. Tyre Right came in this morning and did them when I wasn't looking. And who's bashing gates in here? Who's bashing gates? Eh? Pack it in. You lot? Oh, it's him down there rubbing his head. So, cattle are all bedded out this morning. I've moved one of the feeders inside because apparently we're going to get some more wet, although I just looked at the weather app and it says 3 days of dry. So I may not have needed to do that. I'm off now to go and buy some lagging because when I came down this morning I noticed this chap need a new tap. I think I might actually have a tap, but I'm going to actually blank this pipe off. And yeah, this is the pipe at the moment, the temporary fix for the pipe over there. I don't need it, so I'll just blank it off for the time being. And yeah, lagging for that and lagging for Holly's kitchen. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, I would just like to add NFU. They have had a bit of a slating in the last couple of weeks with folks saying oh, they didn't do enough, they were too slow, they backtracked, they're puppets or whatever, all this stuff. I've got to say that everything I saw at yesterday's event, both at Church House and in the Portcullis House, which is where I had my meeting, because we had a rep as well with a set at the table, I think in the time they had to put this together, it was really well organised. The catering was okay, although I got to say the sausage in my bun wasn't that hot. But other than that, the venue was great. The speeches were fantastic. I've actually recorded Tom's speech, which I'll put either in this video or another one. Yeah, I think in the time they had to organise this event and for what they put on, they did a really good job. I am talking to myself. I do a lot of talking to myself. What's that, jammy donuts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Anyway, when we arrived at Church House, it was buzzing. There were reporters from all over the place. LBC, BBC, I think Sky might have been there. Yeah, loads and loads of people going around with cameras and microphones. I successfully managed to dodge pretty much all of them. Mr Cornock didn't. Mind you, he did stick out like a sore thumb with that Union Jack jacket on, and he made it to BBC News. He actually did a really good interview. And again, it was from the heart, and a lot of people felt it. So, fair play, Richard. Right, you caught me on a few essential winter farm duties, which is, well, frost-proofing some pipes. Okay, putting some lagging back on, something that they're going to really enjoy chewing back off again. Done that one as well. Hopefully I've protected it with these. We'll see. We're going to do one at the end. Anyway, while I'm doing this, I'm going to cut in a bit of yesterday, possibly one of the most important bits for me, And that's the speech given by our NFU president, Tom Bradshaw. It's worth listening to, it's worth watching to the end, and it's worth noting the mood.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Church House. On behalf of all of the UK Farming Union presidents who join me here today, thank you for making the effort and coming to join the fight. I know many of you have come a long way. You don't need me to tell you that farmers and growers put up with a lot, but it takes something extraordinary to get us to react like this. And the betrayal on agricultural property relief and business property relief is extraordinary. And it affects farmers from every corner of Britain, many whom have travelled here today. I don't think I've ever seen the industry this angry, this disillusioned, this upset. And given what we've had to be angry about in recent years, that's saying something. Together, our focus today is on APR and BPR. This shocking policy, built on bad data, launched with no consultation, and with the human consequences that go with it, is simply not acceptable. The Treasury didn't even tell DEFRA. To launch a policy this destructive without speaking to anyone involved in farming beggars belief. And let us remember, they promised not to do this. And when they were wooing the rural vote, it's not only been bungled in delivery, it's also nothing short of a stab in the back. But we in this room also know that APR and BPR is the straw which broke the camel's back. After years of changing policy and 18 months of some of the worst weather on record, the budget has been a kick in the teeth. It's full of letdowns for our vital sector. Accelerated BPS reductions, double cab pickup taxes, new taxes on fertiliser, the list goes on. The massive inflationary pressure for the whole supply chain, but particularly for our fresh produce sector, cannot be underestimated. This has been an inflationary budget for food production. There has never been a budget in my lifetime this bad for farming. Rest assured, the NFU and the other farming unions are fighting all of these policies. But today, we focus on APR and BPR with our MPs. We know what this means for our families, our children, our future.
Right, I don't think that tap was going to take much more of that cold weather, so I'm putting a stop end on here. I don't need this pipe, well, not yet anyway. If I need it later on, if the cattle come in that side, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for now, we're just going to stick this chap on here and stop it, and then we're going to lag it. That's got him. Right, we'll let out as much out of there as we can. Leave that open. Frost counter at that now. Right, that's that one done, and that one done. Do you ever have those days when it doesn't matter how many times you try to either say or do something, and it just won't come out? You just can't find the words. That's me today. I suppose one of the worst parts of yesterday was I couldn't take her with me. You weren't laid in, were you? No, I don't need a service dog, so yeah, leave her at home. It was a long day. We started at 4:30 in the morning. That's when Rich picked me up, and he dropped me off last night at 9 o'clock, and I pretty much had it by then. But there was a few questions that I asked him that he did not have the answer to, and genuinely didn't have the answer to. But then I think that this budget and this inheritance tax thing was sprung on most of the party, Labour Party that is, as much as it was the rest of us. Nobody really saw it coming, because they'd all said and promised this, well, we're not going to do this, and we're going to look after you, and you're really important, and we really care, and blah blah blah. So rest easy, you can vote for us and you're safe. Nobody guessed that they were lying through their teeth. Nobody. And I'm pretty sure that if everybody knew what was happening now with this budget, Labour wouldn't be in power. They wouldn't be there. They are in power because of a lie. Look, it's not hurting you, all right? It's just looking at the tractor. So it's just, I want to growl at the cow. So anyway, so there was a few things I brought up and a few points that I made, which I did say, look, these are not gospel, these are things that I've heard. And with all the stuff going on social media and the press and the news and he said, she said, I haven't read the budget. I haven't read all the small print, but I did get it second hand. And I reeled off a couple of things to him, and he goes, oh, well, I didn't know that. And then the chap who was making notes for him, his personal assistant, secretary, whatever else, he didn't know that. And I said, and then on top of it, they go and put the crew cab tax on top as well. And he, what? So not only had I not read all the budget, neither had he. So, mind you, he's probably got a lot of other things to do as well. And I got to say, even though my MP is Labour, I actually liked the chap. Okay? I did like him. So, and we are, touch wood, in the process of organising a second meeting with him in the Stroud district at a farmer's farm, not many miles from here, where local farmers can come in and have a chat with him, and we'll all have a one-to-one with him as well. And I think that's going to be January, by which time I'm hoping the government's going to shift position a bit. I understand they've got to raise some revenue. I understand that, you know, they think that people still all pay their fair share. And to a degree, I'll cut them a bit of slack with saying, do you know what, if you've got somebody who's a big businessman, who's bought a farm, and he's just going to rent it out for, you know, so he can pass the land on to avoid inheritance for his kids, that's fine. If he's not going to farm it himself, or if his family are not farming it, he's just going to rent it out to somebody else, he's just bought it as an asset to sit on for tax, I think he's reasonably a bit more fair game. But you've got a family that's been on that land for generations, and they know it back to front, they know all about it, they've grown up, and it's, you know, it's theirs. Leave them alone. Leave them alone. So for all the corporate people who are buying land to avoid tax, go for it. Because as far as us farmers are concerned, they shouldn't have it anyway. What are they doing with it? They're buying it to avoid tax. We never bought the land. They're at the farm. I never bought this farm off my dad to avoid tax. It wasn't even in my mind then. I bought the farm off my dad because I wanted to play with cows. I wanted to rear beef. I wanted to do my own thing. And the same over at another farm, the 100 acres over there. I'm not going to rent that out to somebody else. I'm not going to fill it with solar panels. I want to farm it. I want to actually produce food. That is my main aim, is to produce food. I want to do it in a sustainable way. So my remit to our agronomist was my soil health and the ground health and the growth of everything else is number one. And the profit for me is number two. Okay, so we want to be profitable, otherwise you do all that work for nothing, but not at the expense of the land. So some of you might think I'm talking complete twaddle with that, but to me, I'm just the caretaker of that ground and this ground for my lifetime. If I can leave the soil here and at home, at the farm, healthier, as healthy or healthier than it is now, then I think I'm doing the right thing for future generations that will hopefully take it on. I'm hoping there's going to be a pull-in or an ancestor of mine there in 500 years' time. That would be my wish. And that's the same wish as any other farmer. That's what you want. You might have generations of, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents who started that from where you are, from nothing. You've, over the generations, built it up to where you are now, and the next generation will hopefully build on it some more. Improvements, efficiencies, welfare, environmental, all that sort of stuff. As we learn, we'll go with it. But you start taking chunks of it off of us to pay what you're paying with it. I mean, was it 530 million they think they're going to raise from this? What's that 530 million for? Because you've given that away, and your predecessors have been giving that away to other countries. Have 500 million of this, have 20 million of that, or whatever else. And it's kind of, yeah, okay, well, we kind of understand that there's times you've got to take a stand, but where's our money going to? Is it going into potholes? Because I don't see it. Well, I see potholes. I'm not a political person. I don't really get into politics, or I haven't, but as I'm getting older and stuff like this crops up, I'm finding myself forced to become interested in politics. And then you start on a little bit, you'll talk, and then all of a sudden other things kick in. And all of a sudden, you feel a bit militant. We're not happy. Sort it out, Starmer.